one direction, we'd like to see go in another direction, then line up over here to the right, and we'll pass you a mic and you can ask a question. And we've got some time here. We're a captive audience. You can stay as late as we want. Well, we can stay until 12 midnight. I don't know what time it is anymore. We've got George Maxwell here. So this is a pretty illustrious panel, okay? Late at night. Give these people a hand for you. What do you think about disclosure? Do you think we're near, far? Do you think it's even possible for the powers that be to actually own up to what the hell is really going on in here? And it's getting late. So I'm going to swear. Okay, so let's start out with Bill Ryan. Let's just go down this way for a change.
Is this working? Do you want me to talk about disclosure? I'm going to make it really easy, and I'm going to say that I can't improve on what Richard and what Dean said between them. I think it's impossible, inevitable, and I think it's underway. And when I look ahead into some possible future timeline, I find it quite hard to imagine the powers that be taking it upon themselves to make a statement. It's just what I subjectively see. I do find it easier to see the possibility of some unforeseen, uncontrollable event that tips the scales in such a way that the way we understand things on this planet starts to rearrange itself quite quickly. And I do think it's possible that the, let's call them the visitors, might possibly take things into their own hands. And if I was one of them, that's what I would do. Which is an interesting thought. What would you do if you were an ET? How about that thought?
Okay, thank you very much. Let's pass the mic to Alfred Weber.
Yeah. Well, a couple of data points. I was told just before coming here, and I haven't seen this yet, so when I get back to Canada, I'm going to take a look at it. But that supposedly the web bots at Half Past Human, are people familiar with that? There are three main trends that have been identified as coming up in the near-term future that are going to be trends. One is climate change, one is the decline of the dollar, and the third is extraterrestrial disclosure. And what I was told is that, and I have to confirm by actually seeing the printout, but what I was told was that the discovery of life on Mars material, which we've been developing at exopolitics.com, was actually named as a trend that's about to skyrocket. In other words, that what we envisioned about a year ago, or about 9 months ago, when we began to photographs of the Mars rover, actually constitute a disclosure sort of made by the Martians and NASA at the same time, and that we're sort of analyzing these photos and putting it out. But now, that apparently has hit the web bots as this next trend, and they actually mention our website, exopolitics.com, I was told. So that reminded me of something that Miriam told me as we were flying down in the plane, and that is that this is really a time for choice. And it's a choice because this is an engaged observation.
Okay, I have some very strong views about disclosure because my contacts with these tall blondes have been constant and very clear on this matter. And they have said to me that the only way that disclosure will happen, as in a full planetary showing of themselves that would take place, is if something was imminent, that there was no turning back from it, and that complete destruction of the earth was going to take place, or total collapse into a state of war. So I don't believe that that's going to happen, because I know that enough people are beginning to take action and educate themselves in this matter. On the other side of things, I'm concerned about disclosure. I'm concerned about how disclosure will take place. Now, if disclosure takes place from us, which we are in the process of doing, and I thank you, Carrie and Bill, and everyone that participates in Camelot, by witnesses, everyone here, everyone on the site, everyone at Camelot, and these types of arenas. We are the disclosure that's taking place. But what concerns me is if a government comes forward and has disclosure. Because if they come forward, my greatest concern is that the information will not be clear. So I don't want to, I'm going to wrap this by saying that I pray confidently that disclosure will come from us. To take place in a truthful, insightful, heartfelt way that is clear from myself, in knowing that this, and again, be very careful, because one of the greatest messages that was given to me, and I mean constantly, it felt like every 5 minutes I was told by these ETs right after my physical contact in '88 that things are not as they appear to be. So that means that I have contact with the tall blondes, and they're beautiful, and they look wonderful, and they're great. Hey, thank you. You're welcome. I love them, aren't they great? But make no mistake that if one walks up to me, the very first thing that I do is I look at them and I ask my heart whether or not they're in integrity, whether they're in their heart, and whether they're true. So let's make the disclosure ourselves, and that's what we're doing here, and that's what we're doing in this room right now. And I thank you.
All right, David Wilcock.
Well, to continue on that theme, yes, I am tall and blonde. As far as I know, I was born on this planet. Some people have speculated otherwise, but that's a question that you have to ask my mother and whoever else was involved in the conception, which may have been more than just my father, who knows. I am an alien, actually, and that's one of the things that we're getting to here. I don't use the word alien most of the time, but I think that there is a greater reality that's going on with this planet, which is the subject of my album, Wander Awakening. Wanderers are essentially souls that did not start out going through the normal mill of reincarnating and reincarnating and reincarnating and gradually working their way up to becoming more and more enlightened to the point where they have awareness of self and where they start to learn, hey, you know, maybe I should love people and not try to manipulate them and screw them. There's a whole group of people here, apparently at least 100 million, if not more, who volunteered to be here. They're from a higher plane of existence. And yet they have to voluntarily enter into a human body, play the human game, go by these rules. They don't have their usual powers anymore. They can't levitate things. They can't fly. They can't read people's minds very easily. And they don't understand the horror of people that you can't trust, people that would try to manipulate you, people that would actually lie to you, as if lying was even possible. Because where they come from, it's all telepathic, and you can't lie. There's no way that you can actually deceive the telepathic system. So these people are here because the Earth can be helped on a strictly frequency level basis. What do I mean by that? A group of people that were involved in transcendental meditation were doing these studies of what happened after they had big meditation gatherings. And this is 7,000 people meditating under one roof for a week. And typically there were smaller groups, and they would study the crime rate around the city where the meditation was taking place. And they found a dramatic decline in how much violent crime and fatalities were going on in that city. It was absolutely statistically impossible that anything else could have done this. It's like at the odds of billions and billions to one against chance. When they had the 7,000 people, when they had a big enough crowd, you find out that the entire planet has a dramatic reduction in the amount of violent crime, the amount of warfare, the amount of human fatalities, to the point that we can actually say that there is a 72% reduction in terrorism around the world. And all of these different things, it's about the equivalent of 3 out of 4 people on their own free will who would have chosen to pick up a gun and fire it at someone decide not to do that because of these 7,000 people meditating in another place. Now that seems very mystical if you are hardened into the perspective that the brain is located in the mind, or that the mind is located in the brain. But if you expand from that and you get into the idea that the mind is actually an energetic field, then what you will see is that we all share an emotional temperature. When the energy from the solar system and from the galaxy cranks up, it does literally affect the temperature of the planet, and it affects the temperature of our emotional climate. So if this room started to get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, what would eventually happen is people would start screaming, they'd start going for the doors, there would be mass panic and chaos. If the room suddenly cooled down, then everybody would feel much more relaxed, much more peaceful, and suddenly everybody would just calm down, violence would go away. So what I'm saying to you is that there is a level to your emotional state that is dependent upon this temperature that's around you right now. And I'm not talking the temperature of the room, I'm talking a psychic or emotional body temperature, which is based on the consciousness field as the conductive medium that's bringing that emotional state to you. Now, personally, you're going to interpret it as something other than an energetic effect. You're going to try to bias it to your personal experience, and you're going to start getting pissed off at something in your life and blame it on that. What I'm proposing is that when we pursue the Bodhisattva vow, I seek my own enlightenment for the sake of all beings, when we pursue our own inner peace and tranquility, and when we get rid of fear, which is basically what the consciousness medium has spreading through it right now. Consciousness field is the medium that fear infects and spreads through, much like if you drop ink into clear water and it starts going through everything. We can actually tune up the field in such a way that disclosure happens as a fait accompli. It happens as a de facto reality. I'm taking my part to bring that disclosure about. I don't think it's going to come from the government. I think this room tonight, this is disclosure, and the environmental climate that we are creating for the world with our emotional energy, not just the people in this room, but the people who are vibrating with our consciousness. We have way more than 7,000 people that are seeing this live right now because it's streaming over the internet. So right now, as you hear my words, we are changing the world, we are reducing terrorism, we are increasing peace, we are increasing love, and we are living the promise of the disclosure, which really means the liberation and the ascension of the human soul. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I do want to ask if that's an accurate number. Do we have 7,000 people watching the stream?
No, currently we're at 450 approximately.
Okay.
But we were a lot higher earlier.
A lot higher earlier. Okay, how high, do you know?
I should say that
Oh, there we go.
Well, there you go. All right.
So we're already doing it.
All right.
We're already doing it.
So wait till tomorrow. They're going
The
to,
maximum we had at any one time was 1,000 approximately.
at any one time. Okay. All right. It's good to hear. Actually, well, Project Camelot, what do we have? Something like, I mean, I don't believe it, but you said something like 30,000 a day?
Yeah, between 30 and 50.
Between 30 and 50,000 a day. Now there's some people out there, all right? We're together. Okay, we're all uniting in this consciousness. Okay. Rich Dolan, go right ahead.
Great. David described himself as an alien a little while ago. I feel like I'm the alien up here. Because I know that my take on this is a little different than that of every other person who's spoken so far, maybe other than Bill.
You haven't heard from me.
No, I haven't. But I know what you will say, so here we are. And I respect that, by the way.
You've got no idea what I'm going to say.
All right, well, that's good. That's good. We'll just find out about that, Carrie. We'll see.
I love the
I think
subtext
I
in this
do
conversation.
know, actually. Here's what I would want to say, that if we're going to speak productively about disclosure, we have to talk about physical realities in Earth civilization that are here on the ground. And by that I'm talking about corporate realities. I just don't see this conversation moving ahead until we understand the nature of the corporate and financial implications of disclosure. Okay, so for example, once we find out that all of this is real, we're going to be this close to the energy situation, free energy. Well, that's great. In fact, that's better than great. It's fabulous. The problem is going to be that it will require a very major shift, and probably an unpleasant one, in our global financial system. We do have money that we use in this world. And the whole economic structure. Look, for the long term of the human race, it's going to be a very good thing. I just think that we would also do well to look at the immediate consequences of what will happen with the disclosure. So, for example, everything that we use, the money that goes into the things that we use, most of that money is energy. It's energy cost, and then transportation costs and all of this. And so once we have free energy, the value of all the goods that we have is going to go, all right, a lot. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good thing, actually. It's a great thing. The thing, though, is that those individuals who own all the energy, that is the ultra elites at the very top of the financial heap, they, you see, are the ones who obviously don't want disclosure. And they are the ones who own all of the media, and they own all the financial institutions, and they own the universities, and they own, you name it. So they're the ones who are making sure that this doesn't happen, and that our message is not getting out to achieve critical mass. Now, they're going to be defeated. They can't win. History is against them. The tide is definitely against them. And our job is, we have to find a way to beat that. Now, one way will be that we're close enough to developing, probably, different types of free energy alternatives. When they get out, that there's at least a chance that that would break a stranglehold over over what these elites have over our energy situation. And it really might be the chance to have a modern equivalent of the French Revolution, or even better. So I think that's a possibility. And the other thing that will happen is that, if the first scenario doesn't happen, is that there will be an event. You see, things are just moving so fast. And I don't know what that trigger will be, but there will be a trigger. And when disclosure happens, it's going to be like a big firestorm. There will be political upheaval. We'll redefine our party system. And all of this stuff won't go away, but it's all going to be redefined. So I think we'll all live through it. We're going to see it, I think, within a decade. If it's our meditative ability that does it, great. I don't discount that. But I'm trying to look at more of the on-the-ground types of motivators and drivers of this change. I think the one thing that I would end this with is that I don't think it's going to be all that fun, and I think it's going to be a lot of work for us, because as Miriam pointed out, if it comes from the government, you can be sure about one thing, which is that it won't be a truthful disclosure. It's going to be filled with spin.
Hear, hear.
Right. And so it's going to be our obligation to investigate and make sure that their spin isn't going to be the final word. We're going to have to do that. There's going to be a lot of work once this happens.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Rich Nolan. Rebecca Jernigan.
Well, I have to agree with those that have been up here talking about we do not want the government to disclose anything to us. We know what that's about. We know that that's not truth. They do that for their own hidden agendas. But disclosure is happening. It's happening, as everyone has said here in this room. It happens with the radio shows that are out there. It happens and it bleeds through in our news, whether it be on TV, whether it be in the written word, through newspapers, whether it be even through Hollywood in their movies. Disclosure is here. And I find it very interesting that we've been given clues and we've been given this information all along. I believe it's the things that these things have been in place to trigger us, if you will, those to become awake, to become aware, hence Awake and Aware in LA. And these trigger mechanisms are those when one person goes, wow, I think there's some truth in that, and they begin talking to somebody else, and somebody else says, well, hey, did you see this? Pretty soon, we've got a little chain reaction going. Rich, I think you were the one that said, not sure whether or not we could bring it to critical mass. That in itself, I don't know, sure that I absolutely agree with that. Because I think it's a perspective of what critical mass can be. If all of us out here are in the understanding of what disclosure is and becoming more aware and becoming more awake, then that in itself is some kind of a critical mass that wasn't there maybe 5 years ago, maybe 5 minutes ago. Every one of us here has a responsibility to self, and that responsibility to self says, the government talks, then you gotta know that it's not truth, right? Right? Because what is their agenda? Look at what's happened in the United States. Where's our Constitution? Where's our rights? Where's any of that stuff? And I think that what happens here is that the people are at the point, it's almost tangible, it's almost where you can feel it, that the people are at the point where they're going to stop and say, you know what, I think we've heard enough from you. I think we've heard enough. And when we get sick and tired of being sick and tired and playing the victim, I think is when we're all going to stand up and go, okay, we need to create something different. And we do that through all the work that we do as individuals as well as collectively. Collectively, we're out there, as David talked about, that experiment. I was aware of that, and that was a very cool thing. That was absolutely awesome. There's been other experiments I have paid attention to as long as like 15 years ago. There was this extremely polluted lake, And they took like a few hundred people around this polluted lake and they set them out here. And they sent this information to the lake to clean it up. So these group of people sat out here for 24 hours at this lake. I mean, this water was the nastiest thing you ever seen. Scientists went back 24 hours later, took another water sample, and it was pure. As a matter of fact, it had crystalline structure in it. It's pretty awesome. So you have to know that we have this ability. We have the ability to change what has been. So if we don't like where we have been, all we can do is make the choice to make it different. Yes? So the question is, are you going to be a part of your own change? How does the future look to you? I know what I want my future to be, and there will be growing pains with this. No doubt about it. Because you can't get rid of the old and bring in the new without having something there as a break-off point. Whenever you change anything, you have to make one transition from one point to the other. And that transition can sometimes not be very pleasant. So I think disclosure is within all of this. I think it can reach more and more of a crescendo, whether it reaches a critical mass to the maximum or goes viral, I guess is the new thing. We got to make it go viral, right? Is up to us and everyone else that we can talk to. And understand there are going to be people that are still going to drink the Kool-Aid. They're not going to want to do this. And it's okay. Not everyone is going to want this. But our world that we create for ourselves is from what we create. So that's what I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Take it.
So, Duncan O'Finian. Duncan O'Finian is a super soldier. Go ahead. You want to introduce him? Just say a few words about Duncan.
Been reading my mind again, haven't you?
Oh, well.
This isn't really a subject I'm really adept at conversing in, but I really have to echo the sentiments of everyone up here that any disclosure that takes place needs to be done without government involvement in any shape or fashion. Do I think disclosure is close? I say it better be. Because we're in a world of hurt, and this party ain't going to have the music we want. And if you want to survive the future, the first thing you need to do is get rid of your fear. Keep your thoughts positive, and just turn some music on. That's it.
Jordan.
I don't know what I can add to this because I have so many thoughts about what's really going on and who's really running this planet. But it doesn't matter how you view the Bible, but it's a very interesting stories in the Old Testament and the book of Genesis. It starts off by saying, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But that's not what it says in the actual original text. That was an English translation. What it says in the original text is, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is, El represents God in the Old Semitic language, and Elohim is simply feminine plural, meaning in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. And in Genesis 1:2, equally as interesting, it says, and the earth was without form and void. That's not what it says in the original. In the original, it doesn't say and the earth was without form and void, because logic alone would tell you if God or the gods created something, it's going to have a form and it's not going to be void. So it was a mistranslation. The correct translation was, and the earth became a waste and a desolation. And the word in Hebrew was tohu vavohu. the earth became a waste and a desolation, meaning that the gods created something, and somewhere along the line there was some great catastrophe, and the earth became a waste and a desolation. And that word, as I said in Genesis 1:2, tohu vavohu, is found only in 2 places in the Old Testament. One at Genesis 1:2, where the earth became a waste and a desolation, and in Jeremiah, the 2nd chapter, where Jeremiah says that he was given a vision by God, and I think this is very interesting. In the book of Jeremiah, in the 2nd chapter, it says that Jeremiah says, I was given a vision by God of the earth, when the earth was a meeting place of the Elohim. But there was no man found on the earth, but it was a meeting place of the Elohim, or the gods. And it says that there were great cities. Jeremiah says, I saw great cities and beautiful cities. And then tohu vavohu, I saw the earth became a waste and a desolation. The implications in the Old Testament is that there is a world of difference between angels and what the Bible calls the sons of God. The sons of God, we are told in the Old Testament, look like us. They were like humans, and the women they took women and procreated with women, and they looked like us, and they had offspring. And they were the gods that created our world for us. But that very interesting point in Genesis 1:2, where it says, and the earth became a waste and a desolation, implying that there must have been some kind of a massive war going on in the ancient prehistoric world, maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago. And this is what the Bible writers were alluding to. And as I said, there's a very big difference between angels and sons of God. Sons of God married women. They took on women and had offspring. So that showed that plumbing worked as a man. Consequently, I think it's just an idea, but I've harbored this idea for many years, that it very well could be that the world is being led by that which the Bible calls the sons of God, who look like us, who look like humans, but they're not strictly human. And that would explain a lot, because the people who are running this planet couldn't care less about human life, dignity, honor, nothing. Whoever they are, whoever these people are who are running the planet, I believe, just my article of belief, that we could be looking at the superior people on the earth are the sons of God, those who look like humans, but they have supernatural abilities in intellect, in technology, in political power, and in technological power, but especially are they not human in their feelings. They have no emotional feeling about the human creation. They are simply doing what they do. And that is frightening to me. And therefore, as I said today, what I am seeing is a mutation of the human family, is being mutated out of their humanity, and they are being led into becoming politically correct, getting in tune with the system, fall in line, and do what you're supposed to do. Therefore, I totally rebel at the whole concept of political correctness, because I personally believe we're being led by some demonic depravity at the very top of this world, and unless the humans stand up for their own sovereignty and their own humanity, we're going to lose whatever it is that humans had that God created us to be. So I would suggest from here on out, don't worry about political correctness or whoever these diabolical monsters are who run the earth, but go back to your Creator and your own spirit and take back your spirituality and your humanity and your sovereignty as a human, and stop falling in line with the powers that be. To hell with them.
You go! You go! I love that. Woo!
Thank you, Jordan. All right. Well, I guess I should say a couple words, but I don't have a whole lot of words to say about disclosure, actually. My opinion is that, like Lot up here, that a disclosure is happening. I believe we are disclosure. And I think it's happening every day. I do think the earth is moving in that direction. And I'm not looking for a president to tell me what is true and what isn't. So, for myself, I already know what's true. Like it or not, I know what's true. I'm not afraid to say I know. And that's one thing that the powers that be don't want you to do. They've been teaching you since you were so young, you can't believe it, that you're not supposed to say, I know anything. You're only supposed to say, well, I think, maybe. And you're supposed to back it up with research.
See, I knew you were going to say that.
So disclosure is already here as far as I'm concerned. They are here. The Anunnaki are here. I've met them. And other people have met them. Some of our witnesses have met them. It's witness testimony. That's what Camelot does. No, I don't have any hard evidence. But we're here. And you know what? You are the evidence. You are the evidence of your ancestry. It's just that you don't realize it fully and completely. Although in this room, many of you may. But in general, we are the evidence. And humanity is genetically created by those beings, by your ancestors. And that's all we're talking about. We're talking about all the ET ancestors that you guys are a part of. And you're a wild mixture, each and every one of you. And we don't all have the same lineage. That's another thing. We are a melting pot of ET bloods, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, that's my short dissertation on that subject. Bill Ryan wants to ask a question of the panel.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to... I'm going to change the rules of this game because it's always slightly more exciting when you don't know what's going to happen next. And the way we're going to do this next round is I'm going to pose a question and then choose somebody to answer it. And then when they answer it, they choose the next person to answer it, and we go like that. So we don't go down a boring line one after the other in a regimented fashion. And my question is, what are the opportunities and threats that may face us in the next 12 months? And what are each one of us here going to do about it? And my question is directed at Duncan. Sure. What are the opportunities and threats that we're faced with over the next 12 months? And what are you going to do? What are your personal plans? What's your personal strategy?
Over the next 12 months, what are the opportunities and threats that face us over the next 12 months, and what are you going to do?
Okay, I have to apologize. I have a hearing deficit, and sometimes if the acoustics are off a little bit, I have to have other people repeat things for me.
I was just hired as his interpreter.
What threats do I think we face over the next 12 months? Where do you start? World War III obviously is, I think, on the block. Economic collapse. The dollar collapsing. Geez, upheaval in the streets. I like to see a little bit of rioting going on in Washington, D.C. and throwing a few people out of there. I think it also follows along the line with the first question with disclosure. As Miriam pointed out to begin with, if the government gets a hold of disclosure, as we know, they're very good at twisting things around. That could actually spark a cataclysmic event of our own making, reminiscent and of much more worse than the race wars we had in the 60s. What am I doing about it? I still maintain what I said in the first Project Camelot video I ever did. I maintain that I stay mobile. I don't stay in one place very often. The other thing I could add is if we go through the earth changes that many people have talked about and I've talked about, touched on briefly, you don't want to be in one place. You want to be able to be mobile, to be able to pack up and move at a minute's notice and have a safe haven to go to and then leave it when necessary. I'm not one of those people that believe in hoarding 2 and 3 years worth of food, guns, and ammunition because it's not going to do you any good. If you have a house full of guns, food, and ammunition, and your house collapses, it's not really doing you much good, right? What I would say is each and every person has to look at themselves and their own situation and plan accordingly to that. If you're a single person in your 20s, you want to plan one way. If you're 40 with kids, you're going to plan a second way. So that's what I think needs to be done.
Duncan, thank you. So I want you to nominate the next person to answer the same question. I want you to nominate the next person to answer the same question.
Oh, for the same question?
Yeah. Which one of this panel here?
Hey, Mary.
Hi. Over the next 12 months, I think there's going to be a lot of changes over the next 12 months. Leading up to the end of the year, closer to, what month are we in? September? Late October, middle November, there's going to be some changes in governments around the world. I believe that that situation is going to be the same as it is in society, where people are choosing a side. And there's going to be some splits. There's been alliances with certain, countries from country to country. Those alliances are going to all of a sudden turn and say, you know what, we don't want to do business with you to the extent that we have. They're not going to be cutting each other off, but I think there's going to be some drastic changes in that regard near the end of the year. Leading into next year, I think that there is a really strong possibility that sometime around July or August, there's going to be an event worldwide that's going to have an effect on the hearts of humanity. Whatever that is, I don't know. I just know that there's something coming next year that's going to affect all of us. I kind of get a bit nervous when people ask for dates on things and what exactly might be coming down, because time and the understanding of time is not set. Timelines that people talk about are in constant change. And the major factor in all of that is who? Could somebody in this audience tell me what affects that? Somebody. Right. Thank you. It's all of us. So it's really difficult to say exactly what it is that's going to happen, exactly when it's going to happen, so I try to stay away from it, because actually that brings me to a really important point, and I thank you. When we talk about a date, an actual date, and say that this is the exact date that something is going to happen, when it doesn't, I think that we do a great injustice to ourselves. In the process of disclosure, in the process of trying to gain the credibility that we need in this community. So again, a word of caution that we need to be aware that these things are markers, that they are intuitions, that they are coming from information from all directions, whether they're physical or spiritual. For myself, I've actually made a very big change in my life, and I guess this is the time for Miriam saying a lot of things she hasn't said yet. So I'll share it here at Camelot. I've been waiting for a very, very long time for a message. And that message has come. And I've been wondering how I'm going to share this message without making people nervous. I have known for 21 years that I would have a message that it was time for me to leave Vancouver, British Columbia, because it's on the coastline. And I started having dreams about being told by my tall blonde contacts that it was time to leave. And absolutely everything in my life, over and over and over again through these dreams, kept saying that it was time for me to leave. And even when I would make a decision, I would say, oh, okay, and I'd try to like do a negotiation with them, like literally. Okay, I'll stay here for 3 months, I'll get through this, and then I'll go, okay. And then I'd left. And I went somewhere else, and I said, okay, I think, can I stay 1 month past this date that you gave me? It was like everything was changed immediately because they gave me a date that they said that they wanted me to leave Vancouver, which is already passed, by the way. And the day that I decided I would stay a month longer, that very day, I received an email from a stranger that said in the email, quite close to my visions and dreams, the exact same thing, which was her contacts coming and standing in front of her, telling her, you have to leave immediately right now. And she was very distraught about that. So I'm making some pretty big preparations and changes this year in result of my contacts, which told me to leave Vancouver. But I don't want people to panic about that. It means for me, my time there is done. It means that if there is something coming, it's coming. It doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. It could still happen 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. It could still happen, or it could happen in this very moment. What it means is that for me personally, I received this message to go, and so I listened. So there's some really big changes that are coming next year. I think that collectively we need to make this gathering happen, and we need to push this, the different subjects that need to be addressed. One of them is definitely disclosure. I've been sharing a little bit more in my interviews that I've had recently about disclosure, trying to point people in the right direction for that, because disclosure will touch on every single aspect of life itself, from religion to food production, to the way that we live and the energy that we have. So disclosure is very important to the entire movement of humanity and movement into a better place. So get your seeds in order, and I'm constantly talking about that, but pay attention to that and start researching what it is that's happening to the world's seeds and our food production, because it's a very, it's an extremely important issue. And so for myself, I already have my seed bank, and I'm going to build on that again this year. So know that I'm making a lot of personal changes because of the information that I've received. And emotionally, we need to prepare ourselves, and that's very, very clear to me. And by preparing ourselves emotionally, it does not matter what happens. We will be okay. Just remember to stay in your heart, no matter what, and all will be fine. And that's all I'm doing. Thank you.
Who's next, Miriam?
I think I'll get rich, because I really need it.
Okay, predictions. I hate predictions. Hate them.
The original question was about threats and opportunities.
Yes.
Yes.
It might not be that anything bad was going to happen in Vancouver. It might be that something good was going to happen, something else for you.
For the next 12
Right.
months, clarify, say.
Well,
Next 12 months.
After great.
I think most or many of the salient points have been touched on. I think a threat in the near future is economic, financial. I think, like most people here, that we're not remotely out of the woods. In fact, it's like the Titanic that's sinking. It's hanging in there, but it's ready to do this. I don't want that to happen, but I think we all see that that's a real possibility, and I think likely. So we're going to have a real likelihood of no more dollar as we know it, the promotion of an alternate currency clearly will be in the making, and that's presumably the Amaro or something along those lines. I think there's a good chance that we'll see a movement toward a kind of North American Union in the next 12 months, assuming the financial collapse continues. I think I'm not seeing disclosure, but I do think that we are, in this country, getting really close to social unrest. I don't know how much more people can take before they start getting rocks and guns and taking action of their own. So those are threats. I do think that that disclosure is an opportunity. I'm often the voice of doom when I talk about disclosure. At least I seem that way, but in fact, I'm really not. I emphasize that disclosure is going to be a rough ride, but ultimately, it is, I see it as our only way out. And I guess the reason for that is that, I mean, pretend it's 1960 and we have this secret. We know that there's this other technology. But in 1960, it seemed like there's enough oil to last forever. And judging from 1960 levels of consumption, it was not too far off, but this isn't 1960. So we're sucking that down really fast now. So in 1960, you could afford to have a wait-and-see attitude. We don't have that luxury anymore. So whatever the answers to our problems are, water depletion, petroleum problems, ecosystem problems, if there's an answer, it's going to be in the radical technologies that are behind the UFO phenomenon. And so there's the opportunity. If the crisis gets bad enough, I'm working on the assumption that there are those on the inside who may disagree with the policy to let humanity go down with the sinking ship. There's always factions. So I think that there are opportunities for us to be aware to work with any insiders who have the ability to help the situation. And that being the case, we're on this tightrope, you see. It's a very high tightrope. And if we fall, we're going to have a really long fall. By that I mean an infrastructure meltdown. And that is surely something that we don't want to see. Because frankly, our whole world has worked up to a point where we rely on electricity, we rely on computers, and if we have to do without those for a week or a month or 6 months, that's going to be very, very bad. Now, if we get to the other side of the tightrope, I think we're in for a very, very wild ride. Bumpy, but ultimately good. I don't know if this is all going to happen within 12 months, but I think it's a possibility. As far as what we can do, or what I can do, I have a family. I have 2 young people that I'm still raising. It's kind of hard for me to just pick up and go somewhere. I have to figure out a way to make sure that they remain safe and secure. And So I personally believe that it's a good idea to have as much provisions as possible. It's a good idea to stock up in alternate currencies, i.e. metals. I think that's a very good idea. And be prepared to be flexible. That's about all I can say. Thanks.
Who's next?
Oh, right. Alfred. Have you gone? You haven't. Alfred, please.
No, and, well, I'm staying in Vancouver, I think, for the next year. But, no, we're over the next year from November 08 to November 10, a specific quadrant of this mind map, the Mayan calendar, comes into effect, and that's the 6th night of the galactic underworld. So that'll be a slight contraction from the expansion that we've been having this year at certain levels. So things might be more conservative on the disclosure front for the next year or so, but that's counterbalanced by the fact that we're beginning to near the solar maximum. So the index of human excitability begins to come into effect, and all the negative ions make us more excitable, hopefully more creative than aggressive. So I see all of these things as kind of process. I don't think that it's a good thing to carry the meme of the worst case scenario as a reality to plan on, because I think that tends to become paralyzing, and I don't think it's a realistic scenario of what's coming down. Personally, like Rich, I'm going to buy all the gold I can. You know, those of us who exist on the universe to attract whatever support we have, because I think that there's a specific gravity to gold in the material world, which people like me, who's a five-planet Gemini, and we're generally way out there, gold kind of tends to ground us. But not gold in the sense of wealth, but just in terms of something to help maneuver in the third dimension. I really am very cautious about projecting the worst case scenario as the reality, because I think it's the mean that tends to be the reality, which we generally can see as muddling our way through. And the fear that the worst case scenario activates in people may shut down our personal growth and certainly may induce fear in others. I know that at the personal level, and I just want to share this with David. The first book that I wrote was in 1973. It was called The Age of Cataclysm. And it was the first book that took seismology and geology, the earth sciences, and attempted to integrate it with psychic prediction, including the earth changes predictions of Edgar Cayce. In fact, I spoke at the 100th anniversary of Edgar Cayce's birth. And 2 years ago at Mount Adams, we had to, give a statement. I gave a statement that really, I had put this meme out there with that book, which was in all the airport bookstores, and we were on mainstream television in the US and Canada, published in Japan. I put out a meme there, which many others had copied and propagated. We Are the Earthquake Generation books, and all of that came from the seed of this book that I had put out. And the vision, which I projected at Mount Adams, you can go on the internet and see the Mount Adams statement, is that in fact, we're not going into a cataclysmic period, but we're going into a very positive period. That's the factual reality, because we actually manufacture the reality that we're transiting through. And it's nothing like the past. There's no reason why the past should be like the future, or the future should be like the past. So I think that what I'm doing over the next year is really trying to be as positive as possible in projecting as much light as I can into this dimension. On Tuesday night, I'm leaving for Asia. You know, in 3 weeks, I'll be in Europe, in Barcelona, speaking on extraterrestrials and the afterlife. If we look at the afterlife dimension, it's where really all of these dimensions merge into a dimensional ecology, and the afterlife is very much like being an extraterrestrial. And just trying to bring to this planet as much enlightenment and upward motion of the vibration as possible. And I predict that over the next year, we will start coming to prominence in the mainstream, and our ideas will. And that this is part of the changeover and the transformation. So I don't think we should look at ourselves as an oppressed minority, but rather as feeding the entirety of the human community. And thank you. With that, I'd like to pass it to Rebecca.
Okay, before that happens, does someone have the time? Because we have limited time in this room. 11 o'clock, okay. I'm sorry? 11 o'clock, right? 11:11. All right. The ET, the witching hour, the ET hour.
All right. Well, threats. I'm sorry. Bill? Thank you. Threats and opportunities. You know, I see things all the time. Matter of fact, Carrie and Bill had me on over some visionary work that happens to me arbitrarily. And not necessarily are the visions pretty. You know, and you can get yourself concerned about that. You can get yourself worked up about that. You can get yourself all in a state of, shall we say the word, fear. And it serves no purpose. It really does not serve any purpose. But what it does make me do is to question these visions. So they are a potential. They are a possibility. There's nothing written in stone. There's nothing here that says this is the definitive path in which humanity is going to make its choices, because it is the planet of free will choice. So over the next year, however, I do see trials and tribulations. How we experience those trials and tribulations will depend on whether or not we look at them as trials and tribulations or as opportunities to change what no longer works. There are a lot of things about the way this world is run that's actually a pretty good thing. It's got a basis of goodness. It's got a basis of working well for the masses. And there's a lot of things in there that's been manipulated and changed and convoluted, and it serves no higher purpose. Not for me, not for you, and not for the masses. Not if you want to live in a planet of choice, not if you want to live on a planet that has free energy, that the peoples are not enslaved. And we've done that to ourselves, so we have to take accountability for that. But over the next year, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential for both disasters and a lot of potentials for opportunities for growth. And what I've been told over and over again by my guides, by those that I communicate with, is how you perceive your reality is what you will make. I have tried very, very hard to change these visions that I have and say, I don't like that outcome. I'm going to change it. And it's timeline jumping. It's a perspective. It's a new gift for me to be able to actually be in a situation, and I've been playing with it. It's actually been kind of fun. Been playing with it. Have an argument as an example with somebody. And you're looking at that, you're going, this is not a pleasant situation. So you change your perspective in that moment, and that argument doesn't exist. Absolutely fascinating. Potential is enormous. So 2 years ago, I was one of those that was collecting food, collecting water. I was preparing. Now I have no stockpile of water, no stockpile of food, and I am extremely fluid and in motion. That is what I have been told, and that's the message that I'm trying to share with people, is to be fluid. Fluidity, because this is the time of change and transformation, is, for many people, will help them to get through these changes that are imminent. They're just imminent. They will happen. How they happen for you is how your perception is going to be. And as a collective whole, what we do. Thank you. Mr. Jordan, I am looking at you. I'm looking at you.
Well, I'm not a prophet, so I don't know what the future holds, but I have a friend in Los Angeles, a young man who is so extraordinary in his abilities. I've come across a lot of interesting people in my life, but this young man is really, there's no words to explain what I feel about him. He's able to tell me things which are going to happen and gives me dates and where it's going to happen. And so he said to me about 2 years ago, he said, watch what's coming. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The banks are going to go totally under. People are going to be losing their homes. They're going to be out in the street, and it's going to be chaos. It's going to be this very serious banking problems. It's going to go around the world, but it's really going to hit here in America. And he says, so watch when it happens. And it's going to be very, very severe. But the bankers and the guys who are in charge are not making it happen. It's a natural phenomenon that's going to happen. It's like what goes around comes around. And so he said to me, but watch about October and November. This is like 2 years ago. He said, watch about October, November of 2009. It's going to be leveling out and business will start to pick up again. And he said, so what looks like it could be total catastrophe, and it will be, but it won't destroy everything. It's going to start leveling out about October, November of 2009. This is 2 years ago. And so now I'm hearing that France and Germany are saying it's coming out from the mess that was going on. So I am just telling you what this young man has said to me, and he's been right every time he's ever said anything to me. So I tend to feel that maybe as bad as it has been, and it's not going to be wonderful, like he said, it's not going to be wonderful, but it's not going to collapse and the end of the world's coming. It will level off and business will be back to usual. So I think that probably we're not going to go under completely, because I don't think the powers that be want that to happen, because we are the goose that laid the golden egg. So if we go under, they're not going to have anybody else to pillage. So I think they want the system to go on and be productive so that they can keep making their tax money. So I don't feel frightened about what's coming. The thing that frightens me is how government is now consolidating their power over the human being, over the human race. That's what's frightening to me. I'm not concerned about the economics, because people who are purely materialistic in their thinking, they're going to have a hard problem. But if you are spiritually in tune with the Spirit and depend on the Spirit of the universe to protect you and keep the right attitude about your spiritual person of yourself with that divine force in the universe, I think that you'll be protected. You will come through this, because I place a lot of emphasis on spiritual protection, you know, talking to the Spirit, asking for divine guidance and protection. But so many people do not have that ability to really tap into the Spirit. They're more religious, but religion's not going to save you. Religion is just a corporate game. So that's why I said before, if you can tap into your own spirituality and talk to the Spirit. This is just one man talking, just my opinion, but I'm going to tell you what I think the smart thing to do is. To find a place that when you're by yourself, and talk to the divine Spirit in the universe. Talk to the Spirit audibly, and ask the Spirit to protect you. Ask the Spirit to show you what it is you're supposed to do. What does the Spirit have in mind for you to do, and to protect you, etc. Talk to the Spirit as if you're talking to a very powerful king or a very powerful man, and be intelligent the way you're talking to the Spirit. Then, after asking the Spirit for protection and guidance, ask the Spirit to show you that it's hearing you. Say to the spirit world, show me that you're hearing me. Show me that you are hearing what I'm saying. Give me a sign that you're hearing me. And you'll be surprised what will happen. You will be shocked at some of the things that might happen to you. Things might start opening up to you, opportunities opening up to you that your neighbors don't have. Why, Bill? You ask and you receive. Like the Bible has Jesus saying, you have not because you ask not. So I think it's wise to start looking more into the Spirit of God, so to speak, more into your own spiritual connection with the universe and asking for protection and guidance. And I'm not too worried about what the future holds. Again, I see the thing that I'm concerned about the future is how people are giving over their spirituality and their humanitarian, their humanism to a mechanized superstructure of some new world order. That's what frightens me. When people are giving their minds and their spirits over to the powers that be. That is very dangerous. That is frightening to me because it's going to impact our civilization. Sooner or later, it's going to begin to impact us. I mean, in this country, we love to brag about how we got computers that can think for themselves. But we can't think for ourselves. I mean, at least we got computers that can do it. You know, so I'm saying turn inward to your spiritual self and talk to the Spirit and ask the Spirit to protect you, guide you. And I think that doing that is a lot better than worrying about the economic situation, because I do believe that there is some kind of a spiritual matrix at work in the universe, and those who call upon the Spirit for protection and guidance will get it. So that's what I feel.
I just wanted to add one tiny little thing before, and just before David talks, and I apologize. You know, people talk about being a slave and being on the planet and so forth, and I just wanted to say that I'm not one. I'm not a slave to anyone at any time. I wake up every morning and make a conscious decision of what it is that I'm going to do, because no one can enslave my mind. And every time I walk down the street and I have communication with my heart and with my soul and with the flowers and the trees, and trust me, if you've ever taken a walk through the forest with me, it's like a really crazy scene, because I just am in joy, pure joy. I'm not enslaved. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to try to be laconic, as in the people of Lacone, who would say as little as possible to make their point. Rich and I both have not had anything to eat. We expected to be out of here by like 9:30, so we're actually starving to death up here. So that's just a tangible reality of our future, which is that we're going to be getting off stage very soon. And I think that's a prophecy that we can make come true, buddy.
Yeah, I have to say that we're going to end this after you,
Okay.
David. And I know we have one question over here. So,
Yeah, I just have a biological need to, you know, nourish this physical vehicle in some form. And
Right
I think we can get room service after 11 p.m. There's some kind of like little menu they give you. But anyway, practical stuff here. You all know my background, and you know that I took remote viewing protocols and was able to use them to gain verbal information, which I call readings. Many other people call them readings. The difference between what I got and what most people get is that for the first several months, hardly any of it made any sense. It was all basically encrypted, and it required decoding. It took a long time to get it to the point where it actually made sense. But before that, I was doing dreams, and I've been doing dreams for 17 years. When I started to take clients for psychic readings, I would have a dream for the client the morning of the reading. And every time I had those dreams, they had astonishing clarity into the insights of that person's life, way beyond the level of what I could have known consciously. And this was a standard thing. It was just part of the job. I just would dream for that person whether I wanted to or not, and the dream would be extraordinarily relevant. I have had prophetic dreams for a long, long time, many, many cases of validation. I dreamed about Michael Jackson dying 6 weeks before he did. I was walking around with him, and he had a heart attack from the fear of his own public. He was terrified of the people. The thing that happened in this dream, and this is one of about 50 dreams that I'm in the process of compiling, is it told me that there was a group of people there, and they said it's such a shame that he passed away now because this huge change is about to happen in the world that he's been working for all of his life, and he wants to see this thing happen. Because what's going to happen is this massive, massive shift in the power structure and the balance from the masculine, patriarchal way of doing things, reintegrating the feminine, the lunar, the sensitive, the emotional, and the compassion. On a practical level, before 9/11, I received a whole sequence of dreams where I saw the events very clearly. I saw planes crashing. I saw the economy going down. I saw towers falling. I saw actual missiles going into New York from many directions at one point. So they were metaphorical statements. Now, I have never, ever in my life had as many dreams about one upcoming future event as I have about what's going to be happening in the near future. I've never, ever had this much data. I am being guided as sternly as possible, morning after morning, dragged kicking and screaming, to be telling you guys that it appears that we are going to have a spectacular defeat of the New World Order Illuminati within the period that Bill has talked about. And I don't want to take my word for it, because a year from now somebody could download this video on YouTube and say, oh, David is full of it. But the fact is, I try to use my dream data as a nudge to figure out what's really out there, what's really the data that we can look at and tangibly measure and study, because I would never want to be somebody just making proclamations because take my word for it. Now, what I see is that as of August 31st, China has basically said they will not honor derivatives contracts anymore, and that is enormous. Because what that means is we have, as I said on the radio the other day, we have 100 times more money tied up in these weird financial Ponzi schemes than the entire gross domestic product of everything generated in terms of real wealth on the entire planet. 100 times more. So imagine what would happen if your money was now worth 100 times more, because the parasite that's been sucking all that money out of the system has now been defeated. This seems to be something that's occurring as a result of an international alliance of countries who are not old white man, Illuminati, New World Order bastards. Okay, we're talking about a new change in the world, which is not New World Order, but it is a change in the world. And it is going to involve a shifting around of financial priorities. But what will happen is this is the way it's been explained to me. There's going to be a harrowing economic event. It is going to seem terrifying, and if you come from fear, you're going to feel like this is terrifying. I would encourage people to hold on to their assets, not sell, because panic selling is the worst thing you can do. Because what happens is this thing is going to rearrange the financial structure so much that I think the notional value of your assets will be much, much higher when this thing gets through. And I think it's going to happen a lot faster than we think. I think we're going to have spectacular, unprecedented breakthroughs in what the average person knows, much akin to when the Cosa Nostra or the Mafia was finally disclosed. It used to be completely secret. Now we make all these movies about it. The Illuminati New World Order is going to be just like that. So again, my perspective is, and what I've been guided to tell you, is that the amount of change that you're going to see in the next year is so spectacular and so positive that your cynicism probably won't allow you to really take it in. But trust me, and trust the data that we're starting to see, it is at least possible, if not probable, that that is what's going to be happening. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. We just want to say that you can listen to our presentation tomorrow to hear more about what Bill and I think. We want to thank all of you for coming tonight, for hanging in there. It's been a wonderful day. It's been an amazing day, and we want to thank every one of you for taking part in it and sharing this wonderful journey with all of us. Good night.